New Line Cinema and producer Arnold Kopelson team up with director David Fincher to bring you a thrilling film of mystery and suspense, starring Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and Gwyneth Paltrow.
He's frightfully smart. He's almost too smart for his own good.
I think people are perverts. If the movie is great, I'm gonna get too much credit, and if the movie sucks, I'm gonna get too much blame. So if I'm gonna take the blame, if I'm gonna take the brunt of it, I'm gonna make the decisions.
Fincher had accidentally been sent my first draft.
It wasn't on offer to me. It wasn't as though they were waiting on my response.
I always say if he had the patience, he could just write it himself.
I was sent the original draft of the script that Andy Walker had written by accident. You know, I probably got 40 pages into it and thought, I don't think I can do the old cop and the young cop. I don't know that I have anything to offer that. And I stuck with it. I got to where John Doe gives himself up.
Detective! You're looking for me.
Most of the movie is gone, but there's still a good portion left. And the killer is walking into the police precinct to give himself up.
I'd like to speak to my lawyer, please.
You can't do this. This is against the rules.
And I got to the end and I thought, wow, never read this.
So I called my agent and I said, this head in the box ending it's unbelievable. He said, oh my God, I sent you the wrong draft.
When somebody says, why do you want to get a French perfume cameraman to shoot a serial killer movie? It was like, I think it's going to be more interesting.
You kind of immersed yourself in movies at quite an early age.
I was fairly convinced at the age of 8 that that's what I wanted to do with my life.
American Graffiti was an incredibly defining movie. Not only because it was shot down the street, and the guy who made it moved in up the street, but it was also, so of the moment. I actually didn't know anybody who didn't want to be a filmmaker. My first films, the Super 8 movies, were incredibly primitive. I knew that I could shoot things in slow motion that looked like the $6 million Man. Like everybody, you start by impersonating things that you recognize.
When I got into high school, I worked after school directing plays and doing lighting for plays. And then at night, I was a projectionist. I went to a summer program for filmmaking when I was just out of high school. I saw enough to know that film school was not for me. I was surrounded by a lot of people who didn't want to pull cable or push dollies or wear gloves and put scrims and lights. Everybody wanted to be a director. Everybody wanted to be an actor. I learned better by making my own mistakes. I wanted it to be up to my eyeballs. And I went to Industrial Light and Magic, who was hiring, and I worked in slow motion. I worked on Return of the Jedi, the chicken walkers, the tanks. I worked on that. So I did that for about 8 or 9 months.
If you kept your eyes and ears open, you got to watch some really, really talented people scratch their heads and noodle it out.
I've kind of been built for middle age. I spent most of my teens working, 6-day weeks and 14-hour days at Industrial Light and Magic or making television commercials, and, kind of struggling through my 20s to be able to be taken seriously.
And action!
I went out and started meeting cast. I met this long, blonde-haired actor who had just gotten off this movie, Legends of the Fall, and we hit it off. I was driving in my car back to the office, and I got a call saying, Brad wants to do it.
David Fincher, I think, is one of the most intelligent men I've run into.
I had an unindicted co-conspirator in Brad. We had a lot of the same kind of interests. And so that was a very different thing for me. For the first time I was on a movie set talking with somebody who was not generation, but of my orientation.
Arnold Kopelson said, would you like to talk to Morgan Freeman? I said, we can't send the script to Morgan. Morgan Freeman's a genius. If we send him the script, he'll never speak to me. I sent it to him, he likes it, he wants to talk to me. So I called Morgan Freeman and he said, I'd love to do this, and we did it.
Kevin Spacey is perfect in that.
He's good.
But you nearly couldn't afford him, is that right?
Truth is, I didn't get the part. I had been in Los Angeles making a couple of films, Swimming with Sharks and Usual Suspects, and then I did a film called Outbreak that Morgan Freeman was in.
Spacey came in and read and killed it, and we were like, Spacey's the guy we should get, and New Line said his quotes are too high. And so we continued to read people.
And I went in to audition for David Fincher in probably late November of '94. And I auditioned for this part and didn't get it.
Finally, I think it was, we were shooting, and Brad said, what's going on with Spacey? We're going to get Spacey.
It's December 23rd, and it's like 7 o'clock at night, and my phone rings, and it's Arnold Kopelson, who's the producer. He said,
you know, the money around the block on his quote. And he said, fuck that. And he got on the phone and he's like, you gotta get Kevin Spacey. And they all said, oh, of course.
He said, listen, do you remember that film you came in for, Seven? I said, yeah, absolutely. He goes, well, David would like you to get on a plane on Sunday and come to Los Angeles and start shooting on Tuesday. I had this feeling that it would be really good if I didn't take billing.
When Kevin's deal was coming through, they were like, what billing position would you want Spacey?
If it was going to be Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Kevin Spacey, and you don't show up for the first 25, 30, 40 minutes, people are going to figure out who you're playing. New Line Cinema told me to go fuck myself. They absolutely could use my picture and my image.
I said, why don't you ask his people if it's okay if we put him first thing after at the end of the movie?
I actually think this is a really cool idea. So the compromise was, I'm the first credit at the end of the movie.
Did you think, yeah, this is the ideal project for me?
Yeah, I really did. I didn't like the script, but I love Alien.
At 29, Fincher was hired by Fox to direct his first feature, the third installment of the mega successful Alien franchise.
He starts off making the third Alien. I think probably the least popular film in the series.
My first movie, it's fairly well known, was a disaster.
The studio harasses the novice director for shooting too many takes of each scene.
He would have to get on the phone like at midnight and talk to the brass at Fox, and they'd be saying, don't shoot the next day. We want to cut that.
It's amazing to me that Fox is the #1 studio in the country because they're all such a bunch of morons.
You know, in my first movie, I was the youngest person for a mile. And I felt it. I felt awkward.
I made a crucial error. I listened to the people who were paying for the movie. It's a hard thing to say at 27. I did feel that I had been sort of passed over and that I hadn't been given the opportunities that I wanted to be given. I was waiting for the right opportunity to make a first feature film, and somebody came calling with a bad script and a release date that had to be made. Nothing can prepare you for, when somebody gives you $66 million to make your first movie, no one can prepare you for the kind of scrutiny that you fall under. It became a very interesting struggle for who was going to make the decisions about what would finally end up on the screen. You know, you do the best you can and you escape with your life and you try to live it down. I kind of retreated back to doing television commercials and had no expectation that I would ever be employable again.
Very nice. Much better.
I was certainly better served on Seven when I had stopped being polite and stopped being interested in hearing anyone's advice.
Kevin Spacey is the suspect, and whose crimes are themed to the 7 deadly sins.
I didn't have that much time to think about how to build that character. In the end, Fincher was able to do so brilliantly with such terror, was to set the audience up to meet this character.
David Fincher's kind of juxtaposing some pretty ugly things with some pretty beautiful filmmaking.
Not my idea of a good time. A little bit too gory.
Being as tough as life is, seeing people, go to these depths, it's just fascinating, It's horrifying, but there's a fascination, Why do people slow down at car wrecks?
It was in the script that you didn't see the things happen, and that just seemed to me more horrifying to have to sit and imagine what it was like.
While we were shooting that scene in the car, David just kept saying, less, do less. Remember, you're in control. You're going to win. Knowing that should allow you to have tremendous confidence.
I think Seven is a perfect movie. It's a true masterpiece.
The film gets rave reviews and grosses $320 million worldwide, making Fincher a new force in Hollywood.
The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
As soon as you take a camera out of its box, put a lens on it, and everybody's in makeup and wardrobe, it's an inherently fake thing.
I'm working on a thing called The Fight Club. It's about two guys who start the amateur boxing league for underprivileged youth and the woman who comes between them. But we twisted it.
Sorry, my bras and the cleaners! Along with my hoodie and my fuck you flip-flops, you pretentious douchebag!
I think that's at the root of the sort of famous Fincher relentless number of takes.
Relentless number?
The Golden Globe goes to Social Network.
It took me a while to get comfortable with the idea of saying another one.
It takes you 10 or 15 years to get comfortable enough to just go, dude, it's my way or the highway.
I don't always have the best ideas. I'm not always right, but I'm always for the movie.